Last time we met, it was AV6 last week.
Yes.
And you have a story to tell about MK Ultra issues.
Yes.
So it's the sunshine, by the way, and I thought I'd wear this hat.
Perfect.
And hopefully I'm in shot. I don't think I am. But anyway, how are you? What's your story?
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to have this chance to share the story. If I wouldn't have went to the AV6 conference, I would not have met you. And had what I call my awakening in December of 2012. And I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together of my life and being led to information and books and websites and had many flashbacks. And I'm going to start with that I'm here for the glory of Yahuwah. I have 3 daughters and 2 granddaughters, and this project is generational. And I'm going to share some very ugly things that happened to me, but it's very important for me to get the information out there. I was not a high presidential slave as Kathy O'Brien, but I was a slave nonetheless. I was born Sandy Bergen, November 15, 1959, in Mount Clemens, Michigan, at Mount Clemens Hospital. And there is a Selfridge Air Force Base that it's been since World War I it was built, and that's less than 5 miles away from the hospital that I was born at and that I was taken back to when I was about 3 years old. A hospital stay I never forgot. I just tucked the memories away until it was time for me to put it all together. And Kathy O'Brien was born in Muskegon, Michigan in 1957. And I believe that Michigan is a hub of victimizing children from the 50s and 60s. I remember that the morning that my mother took me to that hospital like it was yesterday. I never forgot it. I just tucked it away and always thought about it, but never talked about it. And it was a hectic morning. I'm the youngest out of 5 children, and my older sisters and brothers were getting ready for school. I went to the bathroom with no fever, no pain, no sickness at all, and urinated, and it appeared red. And when I went to flush it, and then I looked in and it was red. I called my mom in and showed her, and she totally panicked. Did not take my temperature, did not call a doctor, called my cousin, because my father had the only vehicle at work, and my cousin Rosalind, who drove us to the hospital. My mother wrapped me in a blanket and rocked me in her arms the entire way to the hospital and left me there, and they put me in a cage. I was in a cage for days. And
what do you mean a cage?
It was a cage. It was an actual cage. It was with big, high. It wasn't anything with just little bars or anything. It was a cage. And there was other cages in the room and other kids in the room. And the nurse...
Were they a similar age?
Oh, yes.
So you were 3?
I was about 3 years old, right? It had to have been in 1962. And they never took our vitals. Myself and the other children were let out of the cages to go into a play corner, and we had blocks and puzzles and numbers on the blocks and symbols. And from understanding about the project before the electroshock, they do this to the brain.
Where was this hospital?
In Mount Clemens, Michigan.
Right.
Mount Clemens, it's called Mount Clemens General. It's now McLaren Mount Clemens, and I contacted them to try to get the records, and they said that they destroy any records 25 years and older, conveniently. And I remember that behind my cage there was a door, and I asked the nurse what was in the room, and she said a little girl with a hole in her heart. And I remember how it depressed me and how depressed I wouldn't eat. My parents, the one visit that I remember from them, they came, and I remember them walking in and how my parents, and they gave me puzzles. a stack of puzzles, and I sat in the cage and solved them 1, 2, 3, just like I could.
Can
I
you
had I had a
remember anything about the puzzles?
no, no, no. I cannot. I remember I solved them. I remember sitting there because I wanted to please them, and I showed them how I could do a puzzle, just with like probably photographic memory. I just always remember that, and I said to my brother, I have one brother's passed away, but the one brother that was a part of my abuse. He said, "Oh, I remember going shopping for the puzzles with mom and dad." Because I really, my siblings do not deny that I was in the hospital, but they're telling me that nothing happened to me. And I've had massive ridicule trying to share this. And
When did you start sharing?
I, I tried to, can you cut this? Well, I did an interview with
You don't have
free-
to mention the guy's
I
name.
don't, but it was hacked. So I did an interview, and it made me realize
What
that
do you mean
I'm.
by hack?
Well, I started off the interview with I'm here for the glory of Yahuwah, my 3 daughters, my 2 granddaughters. The perfect host does not know it has a parasite, just like the perfect mind control victim does not know they're mind controlled. And they took that out. They took out my last name. I'm not doing this for to be anonymous. I have no I have no shame. I had to go through the hard trauma of the flashbacks, and I said I'm born Sandy Bergen, November 15, 1959, and it says that I was born Sandy, November 15. They took the year out. They took the last name out. The year is very important because of the hub of that project was from the 50s and 60s when they brought the scientists over on
Do you have a
Project
name
Big.
for the project, insofar that names matter? Do you have any of what it was called?
My project, if,
Yeah.
if it's MK Ultra or Monarch project, I had Mason ritual abuse. I've had alien contact. I
Well,
would
it's
think it's MK. I
You
would think
yeah.
it's yeah.
But nobody told you anything about what it is. It's just,
No, I just
Right.
I had lots of spiritual guidance. I found Kathy O'Brien's book. I went to websites. I found
that's Kathy O'Brien's Transformation of America.
Transformation of America.
Not transformation, it's transformation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
it's very important. It's the difference. It's not like transforming something, it's the trance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And parts of the hospital stay I never forgot. Other ones by breaking, I did some extensive therapy with a doctor who specializes in ritual abuse, and he helped me to break through some more memories of the hospital stay. The one test that I never forgot, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to find out, get my records, is they took an orderly took me out of the cage, put me in a wheelchair, and wheeled me down a hall. There was an empty wheelchair. A girl was brought out of the room. I was brought into the room, and a male and female, who even as a young child I thought they looked humanoid. They did not look like normal human beings to me. And they laid me on a table. They didn't put any kind of a lead covering on me or anything, and stepped out of the room and put their head through a triangle and said, "Smile," and then I was zapped, is what I always thought of it as, in my lower chakra area, my lower stomach. And from reading about the program, when they have access to a child, as they did for me in the hospital, they can actually attach an entity to the root chakra. Or they definitely this could have done something to my intuition chakra, because I believed everything anybody told me until my awakening. And I was extremely sexual. If it could have altered my sex chakra, my root. And through therapy, I was able to go to a memory there of having something on my head, and I've always had these marks in my temples, even as a young child. Something on my head, and drool was being wiped off of my mouth. And I also had blocked out the sexual abuse where they would come and wake us up and sexually stimulate us. And I'm positive that my mom, I've had definitely a few flashbacks of even earlier than the 3-year-old, where she was changing my diaper and stimulating my clitoris. And I was about 1 year old in a crib, and I saw my brother, he's 3 years older than me, get in my crib and play around with me. So I was basically bred to be a child. What I always said, when I had my awakening, I'm like, I was a child whore. When I got out, they also moved me out of the cage after what I always thought was after 3 days, but it very well was longer. And they told me, this is your sister Joanne's bed. So my sister Joanne was in the hospital when she was about 12 years old, because she's 9.5 years older than me. And from talking to her and seeing what's happened to her, I'm pretty sure she was a victim too, but she does not want to even ponder the idea that she could have had things done to her. And after I got out of the hospital, there was I had many earaches. And my mom would put drops in my ear. One drop set would tickle and one would burn. And I would have probably had implants put in then. And shortly after the hospital stay, I started having sex with my cousin, who was a year younger than me. I remember that like yesterday as well. I was very excited. My cousin Danny Bergen was spending the night, and they put him and I in bed together. And I remember waking up with being fondled, but it was a rough hand. It couldn't have been my cousin waking me up, and my eyes popped open, and I remember saying, ooh, and it felt good, and it felt familiar, because that's what they would do to us in the hospital. It felt very familiar, and that sexual between him and I went on for years. If there's parents, I would spend summer vacations at his house. Never once, it went on from 4 years old. I must have been about 3 or 4 till at least I was 13, 14. And there was never one time a parent ever interrupted us. And we were like husband and wife. I mean, very sexual. I knew this boy's penis time I was 6 years old. I mean, I thought it was our secret. And then realizing that I'm sure that they were recording us. His parents, my first cousins, Richard and Sharon Bergen, I consider Sharon a madame. She would put me in the bath with the boys when I was there, hung up a picture with a boy and girl kissing and said, kissing cousins, and giggled. And she also is the one who gave me the puppy. I had the puppy trauma done to me as well. I was probably 11.
What do you mean by the puppy trauma?
It's known in the project that they'll give the child a puppy and then have the child bond with the puppy, and then they'll take it away. Or they'll make the child actually kill the puppy. Where what I did is I had it all summer and bonded. I had my friend called my son. I love that dog. Came home from school, and they told me it was hit by a car and that my mother took it to the vet. And I did not go to school for 3 days, and that one time did my parents comfort me. I heard my dad come in from bowling, and he told my mother, is she still crying over that dog? Yes. I just realized that they never one time gave me a hug and a kiss and said, it's okay. I was just all alone, all that energy that I was giving off, all that sadness, just crying for days, just like I cried all the time in that cage. It was horrible to me. I remember a man, when they moved me out of the cage room into a regular bed, a man coming over. He was there with his daughter. She was dark-haired, And he came over to me and he says, because I would not eat, he said, honey, you have to eat. And he tried buttering my toast, and I knew it. I guess I must have known what they did. If you have free will, how people say you have to play the hand you were dealt. But the deck was dealt against me. I would never have agreed to it was against my will. I was born as an American with I thought with rights, but yet they did this to many, many other children. And so the sex with the cousin, and then I started having flashbacks of the sex with my brother. And I called him and I said, Billy, do you remember undressing me in mom and dad's bed? And he said, oh, no, that was in the tent. And then the block came off, and I remembered at least 20 times of him molesting me. And he was like, well, I didn't really penetrate you. I was just a kid, too. But he did a lot of stuff to me, which was not. And he would call me names every day and sing fat songs to me. And I had like my self-esteem. I've always thought of myself as not pretty and overweight. And I'm fine now that I've broke this. I can say, hey, I'm okay. And now I do know why they did it to me.
Yeah, this is very important. It's the I'm okay, you're okay situation. That's balance. It's when the other person's okay, but you're not okay.
Right.
That's when, or the other person's not okay and you are okay, and then you have imbalance.
And that same brother was sent to a special school between I think he was around fourth grade. I was 3 years younger than him. And I remember asking my mom, why does Billy have to go to the special school? She said, because he daydreams. And I think in that school, they were probably programming him to be my handler.
Do you have a name?
For the school that they sent him to, I think it was called Mott. He was sent to Mott,
How do you spell that?
M-O-T-T.
Yeah.
And
Is that the Minnesota?
It's in Michigan.
Michigan.
It was everything. My whole childhood was in Michigan, and I went to Auburnshire Elementary School. And he was there until and that was within 3 miles of my house. This special school was about 15-mile bus ride that they took my brother to every day, the special bus. And
how many others were in the bus?
oh, I think that I would see him take off with maybe 10. So
Were they from the local area? Or they
yep. Probably picked them up through the. I was born in Mount Clemens, Michigan. I grew up in Utica, Michigan. It's a suburb of Detroit, and I'm pretty sure that whole neighborhood, those kids were messed up. When I was.
Why are you pretty sure?
Because when we were in school on recess for at least 4th to 6th grade, or fourth and fifth grade, every recess there would be a group of us that would go, we thought, to the back alcove or foyer by the doors, the back doors, and we would kiss and fondle every recess for 2 years. Where were the teachers? Where were the teachers' aides? That we were encouraged. It was like the childhood of Brave New World, where they encouraged the children to go play in the recesses and go play sex games.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell you. How could
What age are you talking about now?
I'm sorry?
What age are we talking?
That was between like 4th grade, 5th grade, for sure.
What's
5th
that
grade. It could have.
For a non-U.S. citizen, what's that? What sort of age is
All right, I started school when I was 4 and a half. So we were talking 10, 11.
Right.
And I mean, we would go. Might have been with Teddy one recess, and then the next recess I was with Jimmy, and I even talked to a girlfriend that there's one friend that she goes, oh, I wasn't a part of that group. I wasn't a part of that group, and I was, obviously, because thought I was just kicking sex. I mean, having all of that.
Why? I mean, what other groups were there?
Well, there was kids that would go out and play on the playground and do kids stuff, and we were doing all this sex stuff. And I look back, and I'm telling you, there was not one time a teacher's aide came and said, "Hey, you kids, break that up. You're too young to be doing that." So it was a setup, and there was many hearing tests I remember going and then plugging stuff into our ears, and we very well could have been programming stuff in commands or yes. I mean, there was no parent consent and I would say I remember at least 5 times, second grade, third grade. But I know the grades are hard for people not from the States.
Well, it's just roughly.
Right. Well, most of the time in the States, the school starts, kindergarten starts at 5. But I was born in November.
That would be called first grade.
That would be kindergarten, and then first grade. There's kindergarten, and then there's first grade, second grade, up to 12th grade.
First grade really for 6-year-olds.
Yes. Most of the kids start between like at 5 or 5.5. But I was born in November, so I was pretty bright, and I handled it just fine. So I started school. I was one of the youngest to graduate from high school. And I went through that thinking I was getting the best education ever, and realized that they altered information, just like Orwell's 1984. And for instance, in 12th grade, I had government class, and they said, because I have a very good memory, they said that the Federal Reserve is owned and run, controlled by the U.S. government. Well, after my awakening and seeking out so much information and books and knowledge, a bunch of banksters got together in 1913 and created the Federal Reserve at a place called Jekyll Island, very appropriate name, and that the U.S. government borrows from the Federal Reserve and pays back with taxpayers' dollars with interest. See, they did not teach us that, just like Nikola Tesla was never spoken about until I only discovered Nikola Tesla a few years ago. It was, even my daughters, who are 35, 25, and 23, they said they did not have any Nikola Tesla teachings at all. And they're a product of the same
I think
education.
it's only relatively recently that people have, more informed people have known about Tesla for a long time, but I think he has been, his true genius was attributed to a lot of inventions and things attributed to Marconi. Not that Marconi wasn't a brilliant and fantastic guy, but it seems that some of the inventions and the genius of Tesla were suppressed by calling him Marconi.
And I ended up reading an autobiography of Nikola Tesla and seeing a video called The Secrets of Tesla, and realized why they covered him up, because he was so advanced. I mean, why
have you really gone on with Tesla? What's the connection between, first grade child abuse?
Oh, well, I was trying to do the
Huxley.
how they definitely gave a false education. And I grew up in America where we were given the hype that we're getting the best education in the world, and then I realized how far behind and how it altered it. So I was just sharing that as part of the childhood. I shared the puppy thing, which is very important because it was very traumatizing for me. And then if there is information
what happened
out
to the
there.
puppy?
Well, I got off the bus, because I remember I got off the bus and I had a friend whose dog came running up to him, and I said, my dog's always waiting for me when I get home too. He was a little poodle Pomeranian who would jump from the ground to my arms when I started school, because we bonded the whole summer vacation.
Yeah.
And he would jump in my arms, and it was probably a few weeks after the school year started that I walk in and my dog's not there. And my parents had bought a party store, and we lived behind it, so I went into the store and I said, Daddy, where's Duffy was his name. And he said, your mother took him to the vet. And I immediately started crying, because in my little head I knew that he did not have a vet appointment. And I ran upstairs to my bedroom and started crying, and my mom came in shortly after, and I screamed down the stairs. I said, is he dead? And she said, yes. And I believed them. And she said that the lady my dad had left the side door open, and then he wandered out onto the road, and the lady that hit him came into the store and told her the dog was hit. And my mom said she took the puppy and rocked him in her arms the whole way to the vet saying, my daughter's going to be so upset. My daughter's going to be so upset. Well, yeah, I was. And I didn't even think to say I want to see my dead dog because I trusted my parents. I mean, I really wish that they were still alive so that I could have confronted them because they died with their secret, knowing what they did to me and knowing that they encouraged me to be sexual. When I was about 6 or 7, I remember I was watching I would be watching TV or something that would trigger me, and I would just go into drawers. And I went into my dad's drawer, and right on top, not underneath or anything, was this big, thick cartoon pornography book with graphic stories with grandpa and the grandkid and sex with dogs and animals. And I would read, that became my go-to toy. I would go into the bedroom and get the book and go into my bedroom and read it and get all sexually. And I learned to masturbate when I was 8 or 9 years old. I masturbated with a dog. I did. I'm not proud of it, but I did. As I didn't, that's what I thought I was. And I mean, I was having orgasms at such a young age. They took all my innocence away, basically. And I know my mom had to have known I was in there all the time. I mean, it was what I was. Just like all the sex with my cousin. I called my cousin Danny and I said, Danny, do you remember all the sex we had as children? He goes, oh, Sandy, we were so young and it happened so often. He said, I don't remember the first time. It was at your house, at my house. I said, well, I do. I remember the first time. And I said, don't you see we were set up? And he said, wow, maybe that's why I'm screwed up. But he's like, well, I was never taken to, so I proceeded to talk to him about what happened to me. And he doesn't talk. I tried calling him again, and he will not answer his phone. Most of my family.
Is he traumatized himself?
He may be.
I mean, but he hasn't had the. I mean, you've woken up. You've been able to understand, get a wider perspective.
Yes. And there was actually another cousin, Diane, that we would have threesomes. And Diane's with Danny and Diane and me. And she said, we call it playing ghost. And I just thought it was normal. And I'm losing track of my thought. So I'm trying to go in the order of things. And
Yeah, that's okay.
Right. And I mean, I had started having sex with my first boyfriend when I was 15, and that went on. And I ended up meeting my first husband, Clifford Morgan, and he was killed. I got pregnant, and
Can you go more into your first husband? I mean, he was killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
It seems that he seems to be different from a lot of the other people that you met.
Well, he would always.
How did you meet him? How did that happen?
I ended up meeting him at a party, and I immediately fell in love with him. Like I've always
Was
just.
it a normal party? Was there anything suspicious about it? Or?
Not to me at the time. It was a coworker invited me to her parents' bar. And he was there, and he was in a suit. And I remember I buried him in the same suit that I met him in. But the whole thing is that he actually sexually abused my niece. I ended up meeting him, and I got pregnant, and we got married, and he would hide pornography books. I would find pornography books up in the closet, and we were very much on a budget. We were pretty poor. And I was like, you're buying these. I said, and then you're not even sharing them. Because I was looking at pornography. My brother had an extensive pornography collection under his bed, and I would go in there all through high school and stuff. And I mean, just read these stories and, just have orgasm after orgasm. And so when I met him, he kept telling me, I'm going to die before I'm 30. I'm going to die before I'm 30. He wanted me to prepare for his funeral. He wanted a funeral for a friend played there by Elton John.
Yeah.
I did it for him. I did. Yes, he was a part of the project. They deliberately. He knew. I don't know if he knew consciously or if it was subconscious, but I had my nieces would spend the night. My oldest sister had 4 kids, and my nieces would spend the night. And my niece Sherry wanted to stay over. It was a Friday night, and I made her a bed on the couch. And Cliff was sitting on the end of the couch. I was in a chair. The show Benny Hill came on.
Yeah.
I didn't like that show, and I was said, well, I'm going to bed, and don't forget you have work in the morning, which I was good because he had overtime because the next day was Saturday, and I told you we were kind
What
of.
did you not like about Benny Hill?
I don't know. I know for me being so sexual and into the porn, into the magazines and stuff, something about that show, and I'm wondering if that show triggered him to molest my niece. But, anyways. I went to
No,
bed.
it's interesting because I know one of the characters in the show. He was an actual backup for Benny Hill.
Okay.
And where they made it, and in fact, sometimes Benny Hill would switch with his double, just as a bit of fun. So it was a show that was taken off here in the UK, but they still made I think at least another 2 seasons, I think, for the United States.
So this was in 1980 when this happened. It was because my daughter was born on Friday the 13th, July 13, 1979. She was 1 year old when he molested my niece. So it had to have been around July. And I went to bed and I woke up and I heard whispering, and we had an apartment and it was a long hall to the living room from the bedrooms, and they didn't hear me come in. And she was sitting on his lap. And I said, what do you think you're doing? And they both jumped a mile. And I didn't put it together though. I said, you have work in the morning, it's 1 o'clock. So there had to have been 2, I don't know. And he probably went, shoo, because I didn't say, you're molesting my niece, you bastard, and throw him out, right? I was just like, I may have blocked out, but she was sitting on his lap, and they must have been done, because it turned out, I found out through an aunt, she said, he was finger fucking her, don't you? I remember falling to my knees, because I was in love with him. I wasn't planning it. I had a 1-year-old baby. I wasn't going to leave him. I was trying to make this marriage work, trying to get him to work a little more, and I had to leave him. And on October 10th, 1980, 10/10/80, he was killed in a car accident. First of all, though, my sister, what happened is I didn't put it together, and she decided to stay the whole weekend. She didn't say anything, Aunt Sandy, Uncle Cliff hurt me or did this. She didn't say nothing. She stayed the whole weekend. And on the Monday night, I went to the gym with my sister Joanne, and that's her mom. And I said, hey, did Sherry come home and say Aunt Sandy scared her? Because I walked in, she was on Uncle Cliff's lap, and I walked in on them, and they both jumped a mile. Well, a bell went off in her head. When she got home, she called her daughter out and said, what were you doing on Uncle Cliff's lap? She turned 10 shades of red and said, it's our secret. And they took her to a therapist who confirmed that she had indeed been molested, but they never filed charges. 3 months later, he was killed in this car accident it was a ritual spot. And so I saw a lady in the store get killed in that spot. I'm getting pinged right now. I'm getting little ding 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 dings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just check the audio. Yeah, okay. Now, what do you mean by that? You've been pinged?
Oh, it happens to me quite often. When we get through other parts of my life that are imperative, they definitely probably re-implanted me in 2010 when I was in Alabama. And I do get hit with EMFs and ELFs, and I feel like I'm just one of their experiments, like a lab
But
rat.
what do you mean by that? Do you explain that? What that means? What you know what that means? I mean, what do you take it as?
I take it as they knew, the powers that be, or the CIA or the aliens, whatever. They knew I was going to wake up in 2012, and I think that they're very interested in how I handle it. They knew that they know what they did to me, and I did not have I had no clue.
Your waking up is part of the program.
Yes, yes, yes. It's part of it. Okay. So we were on
So
the
you
story.
think you were actually part of the program? So this what you're doing now is part of the program then?
Yes, yes, absolutely. They watch. I have 24. I just sold my property and my all my possessions, and I was so mind controlled to buy this property in July of 2012. I had my awakening in December of 2012, and then I started noticing across this 110 acres next to me, these people mysteriously moved out, and there's all empty property, and across there's a pole barn with a pole, and it has about 6 things hanging on it, a beaming light coming into my house, a camera on it. The back of the property, I would go out and have fires, and I would tell people, well, it's getting dark, go ahead and look through those woods. And through the woods, there'd be 5 different lights shining right into my property. And I was like, oh, if I would have had my awakening um, before, I would never have purchased this land. But I thought it actually was beautiful because I was able to meditate and walk the property and took the time to be able to. I've had the time. But yes, he was supposed to have been passing it. I had moved. I had left him because my family was telling me, he's going to do it to your daughter, and so I moved out to my parents' house, and I got a phone call. I went and got a job bartending because I was going to college to be a legal secretary, and then I quit and went to professional bartender school, and I was bartending at an Elks Club when the coworker invited me to the party that I ended up meeting Cliff, and had that short time with him because he's passed on. And
What do you mean that meeting with Cliff?
I met him at that party she invited
Yeah.
me to, and I met Clifford Donald Morgan, and then the accident. I had been working at this. Got a job at a bar called the Red Fox Tavern in the town nearest town to my parents, and I already had met this man who came in there. He was 6'4", gorgeous, blonde hair, blue eyes, and told me everything I wanted. That I'm the great. That what they usually will do. You're the greatest and all that. And I even went on a couple dates with him, and then I got the phone call on 10/10/80, which was a Friday night. Lots of things happened on Friday for me. That his brother Sandy, this is Ronnie. Cliff is dead, and I was like, put the phone down, went and got my mom, and proceeded to make funeral arrangements and do what he asked me to do. I never put it together. I thought maybe it was God doing it, or it's what he shouldn't have molested her. But technically, he should have just went and got help. He shouldn't have been killed. Look at Jimmy Savile got away with all of these pedophiles get away with everything, and the husband of my sister is Wade Vyers.
Who's that guy? Oh, Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy Savile, yeah. I mean,
Well, we call it Jimmy Savile.
Savile. Oh, see,
Yeah. But it's interesting the way you say his name, because the Savile clan was given a fairly unique reward by Norman the Conqueror in England,
Oh,
and they were given a great dispensation. I think they were given Yorkshire. Which is interesting because the former chief medical officer for Yorkshire, that's to say Nina Valentine's great grandfather, he was instrumental in instrumenting MK Ultra in Britain. He even kept him on well into his retirement,
right.
according to Nina, who's aware of the MK stuff.
Well,
That's another basis interview.
you see, and most of this people normally do not even admit, if they're a Mason. I am just pretty positive that that the family that killed my husband were Masons. The dad, Wade Vyers, his father's first name was even Mason Vyers, and he knew me as a child. He would come in my
So
parents.
you don't know they were Masons.
I could have. I was wanting to go where Wade is at in Kentucky. He's in a town. I think it's called Stanton, and I looked it up. There's a lodge there, where these first cousins of mine that are much older than me now. They're in their 70s. They're in every town where they're at. There's a lodge. I don't know it for a fact. Now Cliff has
No,
come.
it's just
Mm,
if one's going to make very serious accusations, you don't know. I mean, it's just supposing.
right.
Okay.
Right. I don't. I
Okay.
just.
That doesn't mean that they aren't, but or it doesn't mean that
They are exactly. Right.
Yes. Just worth mentioning. That's all.
Absolutely, I've since my awakening, I've had a lot of PSI abilities where our spirits have come through, and there's a smell when they come around.
What type of smell?
It's like a sulfur smell.
Yeah.
That's what I describe it as always. And I'll be with people and I'll be like, "Do you smell that?" And they're like, "No." And then it'll be, and my heart will start beating,
Yeah.
and cobwebs, and my hair will move, and they actually touch me sometimes and everything, whatever that is, the interdimensionals. But Cliff came. Cliff came and he was very excited. He said, "I got my father, I got my dad." And his dad was a pedophile. Clifford's dad molested Cliff's half sister, Shirley, who actually left the home because her mother would not do anything, and the father was molesting her. Well, he also molested.
Did she tell the mother?
Yes, she did nothing. She moved out. She left at 16 years old because he was doing it to her. And I had heard Shirley said, he did it to a neighbor girl. And through this, it's all telepathic, and it comes quickly.
It's okay. Just take it as you.
Yeah, I mean, I remembered hearing about this, so I said, and Cliff was so excited. He said, "I found my dad. I have my dad." And right away, he brought the Mason to me. Their last name is even Morgan, which there's a Morgan that was back in the 1800s, I think, what was his first name? Thomas, maybe? I saw a special on it, but somehow Masons started coming on the TV after my awakening, because I had never even thought about Masons. I didn't put it together. I believe they actually put a block in it or something, because I was like, now I know what the Mason symbol is and the lodges, and I just never paid attention. And so he told me that he did get caught with that girl, and that
She
the
got
police
caught by who?
well, the girl told her father. They made a police report, and that he was given a deal if he sells his son to them, Cliff, to use him to traumatize me, and put him through the program, that he wouldn't go to jail. Because his wife did not care about doing it to Shirley, but apparently the child went and told her family, and he said, he was dead time Cliff was 13 or 12 or 13, and I never knew his name. I was only with Cliff for 2 years, and I just had this meeting about probably in 2013, and what was I going to say there? I just lost it. Oh, and I said to him, I said, "I don't want to." I said, "You're a pervert." I said, "I don't really want to welcome your spirit to me," and he said,
What do you mean, welcome the spirit?
I try to always. I can't really control when they come around, because I've had at least 30 incidences where, so I'll be with a friend and I'm like, your dad's dead, right? And he'll be like, "Yeah." 3 years ago? Yes. Is his name Doug? Yes. I mean, that's just putting it, how it happens is longer, and I would like to write a book about him, about how it happens. And it's happened when I had the names right. So he said his name is Ernie. Ernie, it was as clear as day, Ernie. So after he's gone, and even I had my last handler was still living with me, and he came in and he says, "Who are you talking to?" Because I was talking to him, out loud, because I was like, I said, "You won't believe it." I said, "It's my first husband's father, the spirit of his father." Well, I couldn't find his death certificate, to see what the father's name was. So my oldest daughter that's her dad, was still talking to me then, and so I texted her and I said, "Could you look up and see what your it would be your grandfather's first name is?" So she texted back, said I couldn't find the death certificate, but I called Aunt Shirley, that was his half sister, and she said his name was Ernal, but they called him Ernie, just like that. And I was like, there you go. And so I almost wanted it to be wrong, because it had started happening. And
Now, when you have these visits, can you see them? Was there any visual indication?
Not really. It's mostly, like I said, my leg will start shaking. I'll feel energy, and then I'll be like with a friend, Quinny, somebody here, and he goes, "Oh, that's my cousin who died 2 years ago." I said, "On a motorcycle?" Because I could see it. It's like they send. Robert Monroe wrote 3 books before he died, and he would have many out-of-body experiences, and he called them rotes, where I think it was ROTES, where he would meet a spirit, and immediately you get like downloaded. You get downloaded of their life, and that's kind of how it happens with me. Like I saw a bunch of Mason stuff through Ernie, and he was explaining it, and it's all real quick, but I understood that he sold his son out, and
To who? For what?
that's why Cliff would always say, "I'm going to die before I'm 30," because they put that net in. It probably I can't tell you for sure if it's MK Ultra or Monarch Project.
But if he was sold out, maybe there was a pre-soul agreement of some kind?
Perhaps. I mean, yeah. And like I said, I've tried to break all my soul ties with any malevolent beings, because I don't really want to be recycled again. Because
How do you know that? What does that?
Know what?
How do you know that you've had agreements? What do you mean by malevolent beings? Could you go into that?
Malevolent beings obviously are not good. I only welcome.
What's your experience with that?
Well, I'm pretty sure that I've been recycled many times, and
What
actually,
makes you feel that way?
well, I've had some really wild astral dreams, astral travel. I can do that, and I went out of my body, and I was going through some buildings, and got to the 8th floor. And it was the 8th building, and then and I walked up, and the secretary at the front desk turned and it did look like Miguel. I mean, it was a man with a beard, a kind of older man, and she turned, and it's all telepathic. She said, "She's here," and I walked
now
in.
You're talking about one of the German
Yes.
programmers.
Mm-hmm. And she said, "She's here," and he turned to me and he said, "Oh, so you figured this out." And to me, and it was telepathic, but it was 8 lives that I've gone through this program. And take it for what it is. I mean, I've had many astral dreams.
What sort of, tell us about that.
All right.
I mean, before we do anything, are you aware of any of the Casper, Max Spears stuff? The other?
Well, what?
Okay, fine.
Max Spears. No, I've had dreams where.
When you describe a dream, can you try and give as much detail about the building or any other details you might see in the dream?
Okay. There was one dream the dream, when you're in your dream state, people don't realize it, but they actually do go get lessons during this interdimensional time, and you go out, and then you come in, and for some reason the memory of it goes away. I saw where I prepared to come into this world, and I was in a big auditorium, a big gym type, and it was my turn to run the thing, the track. And the first thing I had to break through was the frequency. And there was these high, horrible frequencies that were coming through. And I actually have a lot of frequencies that I hear. I've asked people, do you hear that buzz? And they're like, no. So I had to break through that. Then the next obstacle was to get through the light. And see, I can look right into the sun right now. And I could see the ship, the gold orbs, and also I could see there's another sun that came in a couple years ago, and it's behind there, and it'll peek out. and you have
What
to
do you
get
mean
through.
it'll peek out?
It'll come up. You see the rim of the other. Sometimes especially when I think it's Yahuwah's planet that he came in and he's going to free the captives. I'll see the top. It'll come up, and it's like he says, "I'm here. Just get through this." He's told me my redemption
So I
is
mean,
here.
you're talking about like a second.
Yes,
it's
yeah,
sort of just
behind
lit-
there,
yeah.
behind it, you can see the ridge of it, and sometimes it's quite prominent. It'll come up, and I think it's for me. I don't know. So I had to get through the light, and I got through that obstacle. The next one, I went into a room, and there was a bathroom overflowing with feces everywhere, just thick to your ankles, and smell. The smell was horrible, and I knew that I was in the evil part, and I had a being come up, and he tried to hurt me, and I said, I rebuke you in the name of, this is what I said in this dream, I rebuke you in the name of Yahushua. And I step out, I got through that room, and I step out, and everybody's cheering. And a little girl, a young woman walked up to me and said, how did you do it? How did you do it? And I said, I practiced. And I said, and this is in the dream. I said, and I even did coke. And I was able to overcome this. And that was that dream. And it felt, and I've also talked to somebody, he doesn't want his name put out there, but he said he's had other survivors that he's talked to who had that same dream. And I think that was preparing. Another really good dream, awesome, where I always laid with my head to the north, and I was taking a nap in the afternoon, and was totally relaxed, and there was two. I identified them as Yahuwah and Yahushua, and they walked up to me, and they put me on a seat, on a roller coaster, and strapped me in and pushed me down, and they said, just take the ride. And they turned and walk away, and they had capes on. So to me, Yahuwah and Yahushua do exist, but they're actually superior beings that could probably be draconians, because they're above the reptilians. And then I found Bill Hicks, who said it's just take
Tell
the.
us
It's
all
just.
about Bill Hicks.
I'm sorry.
Tell us all about Bill Hicks.
Well, Bill Hicks I found through David Icke. David Icke was key in my awakening, and he did some quotes from Bill Hicks. And I highly recommend it. He was only 40 years old when he died. He was born in 62 or 63. He died at 40 years old. Letterman even blocked one of his interviews with David Letterman, and now they have it on YouTube. And David says, I don't know why I didn't show that episode with Bill Hicks till now, because now it's out. But if I would have found...
Is that what Letterman said?
That's what Letterman said. It's on. You can find it on YouTube. The interview,
So Letterman has released this interview?
Yes, he released this act that he had, and because Bill was, he's just awesome. He's so funny and so ahead of his
So
time.
how long ago was that interview?
I think it was in the 90s. Well, if he was born around 60, 62, 63, 67
So it's
to 82.
It's taken like 15 years to have that released?
Yes.
Are you saying something being formally released by Letterman in the last 6 months or what?
I guess. I mean, I wasn't sure we were going to talk about this. I would have did my little more research on
okay.
Bill Hicks. But Bill Hicks has a great skit on the JFK. I mean, and he puts so much comedy into things, and then at the end he'll say, "Is there a theme to my act?" And he'll go, "Yeah, there is. We're just energy vibrating at this low density, having an experience that we believe is real." And he says, "You have a choice between fear and love, and of course you want to choose love, because if you get in that fear mode, then you're vibrating at a much lower. You have to raise your vibration to be able to do what." The spiritual thing. It's important for the breath and for your chakras. You have 7 chakras, and you have the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and it all has to be flowing. You raise your vibration, they lower their vibration, and then you can meet. And that's where every spirit I had, it's been such a blessing because I'm like, your mother is so wonderful. I understand why you worshipped her because she's just awesome. And they're all saying, wake up, wake them up. It's for the children. It's for the grandchildren, and that none of them want to come back. I've never had one, say that they're miserable. They're not miserable. Yeah, and it's just been a blessing that I am so confident that we do not die. Even as a child, I used to say, that we're energy, and energy can't be destroyed, only transferred. So, and then when you put it together, when Nikola Tesla said, you want to know the secret of the universe, think of energy, vibration, and frequency. And I just been putting it together. And I think it's the good news. It's the good news that we don't die. And every American that you meet will say, all you have to do is die and pay taxes.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we don't die. If everybody knew you're accountable for everything you do, that it's all written in the universe, the Akashic records,
Yeah.
and you're accountable. It's in the scripture. I'll be going into the scriptures because I'll explain that they put a Christian religion that right into my programming. And that's been...
It's a God complex, or the Christ complex?
Yeah, the Savior complex.
The Savior,
the
okay.
Savior, that Jesus... My first tattoo is Jesus on the side when I was
Right.
like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Jesus.
Oh, right, yes.
Yes. And I know I'm saved. My helmet of salvation is on. I am saved. I know this. But if you're not...
But,
yeah.
I mean, we can discuss this in the second hour. I mean, Christianity itself is a programming.
Exactly. It's mind control, 101. And if you know that they put I know that they fragmented my mind at 3 years old and they put the compartments in. Therefore, you know that religion is mind control, period. And you have to be spiritual, not religious.
Yeah.
And I have learned, oh my goodness, I read that Bible cover to cover many times. But when that last altar kicked in and I couldn't, through the program, they say the darkest altar is the last altar. Well, my last altar was, oh my God, Yahuwah, my master, I'm your servant, perfect slave lingo. And then I started having all this enlightenment as I read, and being led to lots of information. One thing I wanted to get through to, though, about the childhood with my cousin Sharon and Rich. Richard was, when I was a child, he worked in the grocery store as a manager. When he retired from Ford Motor Company. He was some top electrician for them. And my cousin Danny, who was a part of all of my sexual childhood, works for Ford's. He's a millwright for them. And Sharon took us on a tour of the Ford factory when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and she took her boys and I. And it was a private tour. We went in a side door. There was no other visitors. And we walked the plank and stopped, and they told us where to turn and look over here and look over there. And from reading on the project from Kathy O'Brien, the predators like to see their victims out of the bedroom scene, and they'll deliberately do that. And she actually had Gerald Ford come to her house when her father got caught. The reason that she got sold into the program is because her father was doing a bunch of pornography with her. She was molested by her dad and her uncles by adult men. Mine were more children.
Well, we're coming up to the end of part 1.
Okay.
Basis 44.
Okay.
So we'll have a very quick break
Okay.
and start in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
And this is Basis 44, end of part 1, with Sandy.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. We'll have a smoke break or whatever.
Okay. Yep.
If you switch your mic off,
Okay.
so just to hold the batteries.
So